doing?
It's time.
Time?
Yes, darling, it's time.
Time for what?
A pop of color.
A pop of color?
Yes, dear, a seasonal pop of color.
Oh, so you're painting a wall.
That's what all the top designers say to do.
We could get a wreath.
A wreath, really, darling?
Maybe some autumnal gourds.
Well, actually, those are fantastic. But no, darling, we must be bold and brave and daring.
Must we?
Yes, we must paint an accent wall.
How about instead we paint an accent piece?
And by piece, you mean furniture, of course.
Yes, in a bold, daring, seasonal color.
That could be good.
Yes, it could.
And we could put some decorative gourds on it.
Why, yes. We could put some decorative gourds on it.
It's fall.
I know. Hey everyone, I'm Andy. Welcome to Fall Furniture Fables. Well, friends, it's that time of the year when many of us are delighting in the annual tradition known as fall decorating. And while it's true that painting an accent wall can be a fantastic way to wake up and warm up your home, a slightly less committal way of achieving this similar effect is to pour one of those fabulous fall colors all over just the right piece of furniture. And if your goal is to sell, your piece will have that seasonal momentum backing it up in the listings. The questions are, what is the right piece and what is the right color? Well, I think I was lucky enough to come across both just in time for fall. One of my favorite makeovers to do is a small desk, just like this little sweet one. I feel like they are just such a versatile piece, and their not too big, not too small size makes them a great candidate for a seasonal color punch. I found this one listed for free on Nextdoor and just couldn't resist. She is a Thomasville desk from Thomasville's Impressions line, which is its more affordable line, but this little desk is solid and structurally very sound. You can see the top was in pretty rough shape with either some kind of surface damage or possibly an attempt at sanding. Whenever I look over a piece like this, I go straight to those legs. If they are straight and strong, that is a great sign. You can see that nice little solid wood pencil tray, and the action on the drawers was smooth and they were all sitting totally straight. So she was a true little diamond in the rough. I started out by giving the desk a spray down with just some water and then wiped that all back to get the majority of the dust and dirt, and then just used some simple green to cut through any stubborn grease or grime. If you've seen any of my other fables, you know that I really like to rinse my pieces really well, and I did rinse this piece with some warm water and a sponge. Just for some reason, I didn't catch it on the camera, so apologies if you enjoyed that splashing around. I removed all of that traditional and, in my opinion, dated hardware, and then took the desk out onto the driveway and started sanding the top. Oftentimes with a desk like this, I might like to do a wood tone top with a painted body, but this desk's top was a solid piece of probably poplar with a front trim detail and a red oak veneer overlaying that flat top. And while a situation like that can work just fine with a darker stain, I've found that it can be a bit tricky to get those two different species to match up if you want to go lighter which is what I would have wanted to do. Plus, the more I thought about it, the more I really wanted to just keep it really simple and let the gorgeous color I had in mind sing. And so after taking a closer look at how that top was constructed, I decided to continue on with just an all-over scuff sanding, removing all of that high gloss off of the finish and making sure I got out any little scratches here and there. I removed the drawers at this point, and then I found something really special. It was a note that read, "Wear your finest jewels to the ball tonight." Definitely one of the coolest things I have ever found in a piece of furniture. Here you can really see that factory high gloss sheen that is so great to remove. I also took this opportunity to sand the inside of the desk drawers. Desk drawers almost always have pen or crayon marks and even some glitter and glue. And so the SurfPrep's rectangular shape is so ideal for giving those drawers a great refresh. I brought the desk back into the garage and gave it a good wipe down with a tack cloth. Excuse me, please, Milo. And then I got out some Zinsser Bin Shellac primer. You can see how important it is to give your primer a good stir, get those solids mixed back in. So because I had unearthed all of that red oak in my investigative sanding, I did not want to mess around, thus the shellac-based primer. To my knowledge, nothing rivals it for blocking bleed through, and I was expecting it big time on that top. So using my mini roller and chip brush combo, I quickly did the entire body and drawer fronts of the desk. So here you can see the top after that first coat of primer, and yep, bleed through. The way you can tell it's bleed through and not just that we're seeing that color difference of the sanded and not sanded areas is that there's that telltale ring around the color. So I gave that first coat of primer a quick sand with a fine rad pad and then rolled and brushed a second coat of primer. By the way, this primer does so great when it is sanded. It gets really nice and smooth, and so provides a great underlayment for your paint. You can see already it's way better, but still a little bit of bleeding is coming through. So yes, it is a third coat for this top. Sometimes it takes 3 coats. Don't get worried, just keep doing a fine sand and adding those layers. Eventually, the shellac will win that battle. Ooh, speaking of seasonal decorating, the crew was hard at work that Saturday as well, getting out all of the outside decorations. There's someone hauling some straw that we use for bedding for the chickens, taking that up to the house, not sure what for. Ooh, and somebody's cleverly making use of our California drought. It really adds to the creepiness of the graveyard, doesn't it? Okay, back to our little desk. I gave that top one last light sanding and then gave everything a good wipe down with a tack cloth. And here is that color I promised. This is Copperhead Orange by Melange Paints. A gorgeous deep orange without a hint of harshness. Because I had used the paint before, there were some little dried bits around the edges of the jar, so I strained the paint into a separate container. I decided I wanted to try out a couple of different brushes as I was painting, just kind of for fun and to kind of compare them. This is Dixie Belle's Scarlet brush. I used it to get started on the drawer fronts. If you are an experienced painter, you may be able to tell that it was a hot, dry day. The paint did not want to move. It just wanted to set up shop right where it landed. So after I switched over to this 2-inch angled brush by Fusion Mineral Paints, I got out my misting bottle and used it both on top of the desk surface and every once in a while on my brush to help keep that paint moving. I've used this 2-inch angled brush by Fusion a few times, and I have to say I am liking it a lot. It has a nice balance and really handles almost like a large pen, so just feels very natural. So with an orange like this going over that bright white primer, it is not at all uncommon for that first coat to appear very uneven and kind of patchy. Don't worry about it. Just keep laying down your paint in a nice, even, light coat. I let that first coat dry and then started in with the second coat on the drawer fronts. You can see how immediately that coverage just looks so much better, and this is actually really great coverage for just 2 coats with an orange like this. Then I gave my top a light sanding and started brushing on its second coat. Oh, look at this color as it hits those turned legs. This is just one of my favorite things. There's something about orange on a turned leg. I don't know what it is. You can see I've obviously missed a spot. Well, I don't think a whole side actually counts as a spot, but hey, I was having such a great time painting the turned legs. The next day, I took a good look at those 2 coats and decided that I did need a third. I gave everything another fine sanding and wiped down everything as I looked for any little bits of dust or hairs that may have settled into the paint. So, okay, let's talk about all of this sanding in between the coats. They are not necessary. It really just boils down to whether or not it's worth it to you. If what you want, though, is a really smooth finish, then this is for sure the way to go. And I think a desktop and drawer fronts should feel good. They should be smooth to the touch. Thus, all of the in-between sanding. I decided to try the Scarlet brush on the desktop. I think that it actually did a great job laying down the paint, but I will say that its dimensions definitely feel really different to me, so I switched back to the Fusion brush for the rest of the body. You can see how great it handles those turned legs and those joining spindle pieces. Okay, so after that third coat dried, I brought all of the drawers over and I placed them back into the desk. And then I sat back to take a good look and think about hardware choices. I had kind of promised myself to keep things sweet and simple for this desk makeover. And so instead of hunting online for hours and hours for the quote-unquote perfect hardware, I decided I would use something that I had in stock, so to speak. I held up several different possibilities, including giving that original hardware another shot, but nah, it wasn't right. But I was able to pick something out of the pieces that I had. Some just kind of simple pulls, and one that was a little bit more special, but I'll save them to the end. So now it was time for a little bit more color. This is Dixie Belle's Colorful Tiles Rice Decoupage paper, a beautiful Mediterranean-inspired paper filled with bold and ornate color and pattern. Because I still really wanted that Copperhead Orange to be our star, I just wanted the occasional hint of this paper, so I decided to apply it to the sides of the drawers. I did a little quick measuring and realized that because these drawers had stoppers, I wouldn't have to cover the entire drawer side, and that meant that the 3 sheets that come in a single pack of paper would be just the right amount to cover all 8 drawer sides. I trimmed up the first 2 pieces and then painted on Dixie Belle's top coat as a glue for the paper. Two of my girls were hanging out with me at the time, and so I got some very clear advice about which end of the paper should go where. No, the other way, Mom. Okay, got it. I think I got it. I smoothed that piece down and then used the top coat over the paper to seal it in, making sure to go over all of those edges. You can see here that I am not covering the dovetail joints there at the face of the drawer with the paper, and that's for 2 reasons. One, on these drawers, those joints are actually stained and I think will look really pretty against the paper. And 2, dovetail construction is always a selling point, and so in general, it's best to not cover it up. The next drawer was bigger, and so instead of pre-trimming it, I applied it with that little bit of overhang and then used a medium grit sandpaper to sand off the excess. Whenever you do this, make sure to sand only in a downward direction away from the paper that you've laid down, because going up towards it could tear it or wrinkle it. For the skinniest drawer, that center drawer, I centered the pattern and then sanded away both the top and the bottom excess. Any little bits of paper left over, I just cleaned up with a fine grit pad. Now it was time to give those freshly sanded drawers some big mama's butter. There are wonderfully scented waxes out there on the market, and this is one of them. This is their Orange Grove scent, and it is fantastic. The wood always looks so refreshed, and the scent is amazing. So at this point, I always put the drawers in and wipe them down with some water, and I just sit in front of the piece and do a visual, fully expecting to need to do some touch-ups. I don't know what it is, but there are always teeny tiny little spots that just need a little skiff of more paint. I make all my funny faces, check things out from every angle I can until I'm happy. So one last little prep before I sealed this piece. I sprayed down the top, both to remove any dust, but also to dampen it slightly before using a superfine sandpaper. This isn't wet sanding, I guess. It's more of a damp sanding. And then I gave the paint a good wipe down after that. One more shower, and almost a final buffing before getting out the Gator Hide. This is Dixie Belle's toughest top coat. It's waterproof and cures in about 7 days, and it dries with a satin sheen, which I think is going to look fantastic with this orange paint. I poured some out into a paint tray, and then using Dixie Belle's blue sponge, which I first sprayed with some water, I began. I started in the middle of the desktop and then smoothly wiped back and forth, making sure not to go back over too many times where I had possibly missed a spot. Then I continued on using the sponge to wipe the Gator Hide all over the whole desk. So I have to say, I am way more comfortable using a brush whenever I top coat, including when I use Gator Hide. But I had promised myself I would practice with the sponge, so here I am. I let that first coat fully dry and then came back in for the second coat over the entire desk. Dixie Belle recommends 2 to 3 coats to achieve that waterproof level of protection. And so the next day I came back in and did 1 more coat on the top of the desk because I think waterproof sounds like a great idea. Then I brought her inside, added her pulls, and got her ready for her photo shoot. Okay, do you remember our impressionable and imperfect, scuffed but solid, dusty and dowdy desk? And here she is now. Impressive. Hey, it is decorative gourd season, friends. And what a color! The Copperhead Orange has proven itself to be a true seasonal star and is lighting up this room with all kinds of autumnal sparkle and warmth, just as well as any accent wall could. Her drawers are absolutely stunning with their ornate adornments and refreshed hardware. And while she's a true autumn baby, her sophisticated color looks perfectly in place as a stylish but practical workstation. A supplemental serving station for a special meal. Or just a gorgeous pop of color in an otherwise neutral landscape. But I'll admit, I love her this way.
Oh, that color, like a beautiful bowl of pumpkin soup or maybe tomato soup just after you've stirred in a dollop of sour cream. So good. Okay, so what did this seasonal accent cost me? Well, the desk was free. The paint primer and top coat came in together at $25. The rice paper is a bit of a splurge at $13. And then those 3 simple pulls were only $7.50 altogether, with that one more special one being $7. We'll say a total of $15 for hardware, then another $5 for wax, a chip brush, rags, etc. And that brings my total out-of-pocket cost to $47.50. We'll round up and say 50 bucks. So how long did this desk take me? Well, it took me a good 5 hours to complete, which isn't all that surprising if you remember back all of those layers of primer and paint and top coat, all of which had sanding in between. So if I pay myself $40 an hour, that's an additional $200 for the labor, putting my list price for the desk at $250. Full disclosure, when I listed the piece yesterday, I thought to myself, you know, if this one doesn't sell, I don't think I'll actually be all that sad. I was kind of falling for it, if you know what I mean. Falling for it. Falling for it. But it was not actually a big shock to me that the desk began to get a lot of interest as soon as I listed it just yesterday. And literally an hour ago, it sold. So I guess somebody else fell for it too. And little side note, as much as I have talked about the seasonal aspect of this color, of course, it will look glorious throughout the year. Because of course our eyes reinterpret color as the seasons change, and this one is a winner hands down. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. All that said, I hope that you are encouraged and inspired to create some seasonal magic for your home. Before you get off that ladder, look around for a tuckered out furniture friend who could use a little TLC. And for goodness sake, please wear your finest jewels to the ball tonight. You don't have to ask me twice. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. Is my carriage here? Favorite thing I've ever pulled out of a piece of furniture. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends. I will see you next time for more Furniture Fables.